The Murder Shelf Book Club contains disturbing content related to real-life crimes. Listener discretion is advised.
Well, hello, murder bookies. Welcome to the Murder Shelf Book Club podcast. I am your host, Jill. This is episode 90, Aphrodite and Romulus, my interview with Aphrodite Jones, author of the book Levi's Eyes, A Son's Deadly Secret, and a Father's Betrayal. I am so honored to be bringing this discussion with Aphrodite to you. I have been a fan of hers for 30 years, so this is surreal to me, and I will attempt to keep my fangirling to a minimum. Aphrodite Jones is a maven of true crime. I first discovered her reading her book, Cruel Sacrifice, on the murder of Chandra Scherer, a 12-year-old girl. It was heartbreaking. Aphrodite's best-selling true crime books have been produced into movies, including the Academy Award-winning Boys Don't Cry, and on the Michael Peterson case, the Lifetime film, The Staircase Murders. She has reported on some huge profile cases over the years, O.J. Simpson, Casey Anthony, Michael Jackson, and she has had her own TV show on ID, True Crime with Aphrodite Jones. The woman's knowledge, talent, and genuine concern for victims and their families is just incredible. And what I love most is how she gains access to the minds of these perpetrators so we can catch a glimpse of the evil within. So let me welcome Aphrodite Jones. Welcome to the Murder Shelf Book Club podcast. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you, Jill. Of course, it's my pleasure.
I loved your book, Levi's Eyes. Absolutely loved it. Is this the most complicated story you've ever tried to tell? I've read a couple of your books. I have not read them all. I'm sorry.
No.
But this one really seemed like crazy complicated.
Yeah, it was. It is a crazy complicated story. It actually took me 4 years total to get through it, which is very long for me. Part of that was I had to wait for the trial in California. I actually started with the story in 2014, so it's been a lot of years, but the writing and research took about 2 years for the research and about 2 years for the writing. And again, that's not normal for me, but there was a mountain of paperwork to get through. And then, of course, my interviews with Carl, where everything jumps. You know, there were no logical connections between what he was saying. And so I had to make those connections and filter through, 5+ hours times 2 years of interviews. It was a job. It was a real job.
Yeah. I don't want to make it sound like your book is disjointed, because it is not. But following his line of thinking and expression did make you have to go back and read the paragraph again. And this is you streamlining it and all. He's a mess. Scary dude.
Very. And of course, I think of John List, who was able to have two families and two separate lives. And here is Carl Carlson, same thing. But in his case, I think in his second life, there was just no sense that this was a killer. So he was able to hide that from his new wife, his new son, and even his children, daughters who did not believe that he was guilty until they saw it at the trial in California, which was very emotional to be there and to hear their impact statements and to know that they now had to accept the fact that not only he killed their brother, but he also killed their mother. Yeah.
Do you think the day of the fire that killed Christina but that the intent was to take out the children too?
I think you're going to have to read the book for that. But the answer would be the intent probably was there. We will never know the truth of that. Because just like his granddaughters who he took out life insurance policies on, we don't know that he would have gone through with that. But my general thought is, yes, he would have. And that he is a serial killer. And that he had the opportunity, he would have taken it.
Yeah, I came to the conclusion that he was a serial killer as well. You have to listen to episode 3 on this, but he's a girly serial killer. And I'm sure he would hate to hear that.
Oh, because you mean he's
much more like the female category than he is the male. The females who kill for insurance money are very much like him. They kill
family members.
But Jill, here's the difference. Carl had multiple motives in killing both his wife and his son. For example, and I don't know I make this as clear in the book. I think I do. But I want the reader to read through between the lines, because that's really the exploratory sense of a book. You know, you don't want to just spoon feed the reader. For example, he did not want to live in California. He was sold a empty bag of shells by Christina. He wasn't making it financially in New York. He couldn't get a job and he had to go bankrupt. And Christina said, look, my father has a business. My father's going to take me in. You will get a piece of this business and we'll do great. And so he moved there thinking that, okay, my life is going to be good. I'm going to finally make it. And obviously, Art did not have any kind of ability to bring in money because he did a lot of work for free, because he drank too much, and because, frankly, the 10% that Carl was given this business amounted to just about nothing. He could not make ends meet. And he was miserable in California. Pretended to like, pretended that everything was all good and peachy, but the fact of the matter was, he needed to be near his father, who he desperately wanted to impress, because his other siblings had done well, and Carl was kind of the black sheep of the family. So in order to impress the father, he had to get back to Romulus, New York, upstate, and he had to, come back a winner. And he comes back with $200,000 in his pocket. And not only that, but a hero, because he saved his children. And so there's that issue of, really did he want to save his children, or did he plan to kill them? So I think there's room in there in the book to kind of look at it two ways, because coming back as a hero proves to his father and his family, his siblings, that, hey, I didn't do this. Okay. This was an accident. And I went in and I saved my children. I got burned, whatever. He didn't really get burned, but he had this story and he had an article printed in the paper there in California to come back with, so that he's believable. He's entirely believable. So again, how do we know that he really planned to kill everyone in the household? We truly don't. And I think until much later in the story.
Definitely. He also picked up the kids, was it 5 days later after their mother's death? And boom, they're from California, now in New York.
Correct. And this is the thing. He didn't even want them to go to their mother's memorial, and they did not go. So they were sheltered from that, which was wrong. And he left as soon as he possibly could, because back then, on New Year's Day, 1991, clearly we did not have the technology that we have now. There was no way to check on the fact that he had gone bankrupt in New York, and the fact that there was a car that already went on fire in New York that he collected insurance on. You couldn't put these dots together from one coast to the other. And the Calaveras County Law Enforcement Department did not have the resources to go after him, which he was counting on. And he, in essence, was waiting for that insurance money. And of course, you see in the story how he goes back to California and is sniffing around, because he wants that insurance money. And he's acting like, I didn't really need to be raising these 3 children. I'm stuck with the children. This is a hell of a fight for me to do this, and I need the money.
See, that's why I had that question about, did he really want them? Or was it more about, I kind of have to save them, okay. And hey, now I happen to have a hero story that really makes me look good. And I'm a widower who lost my wife. Versus the, oh no, I got these kids. Who wants to play mommy? Right.
And he says that. But again, as you know, having read the book, he's a series of contradictions. Always. There's always this other side that he's playing to. And like serial killers, the manipulation, the intimidation, the mask that he's able to put on, the false sense of, I'm a good guy, he sells that to Cindy best. And it's easy for him to do that because he is not only the hero, but he's now in need of someone to help him with his children who he pretends he cares so much about. But we find out soon thereafter, Cindy is left with the kids and he's off with his father buying new horses in Ohio, states away, and he doesn't even call her. He leaves her with his 3 kids. She barely knows them. And she's sitting there wondering, like, is he going to call? He's extra days? What am I doing here? How do I handle this? In other words, no real concern for his kids. Leaves them with a stranger.
Who did not have her own children yet. Alex isn't born yet.
Right.
She's thought about what mothering is about, but how do you actually get down into the dirty and do the disciplining and the shaping of values in these? It's much harder than it looks like on the Brady Bunch.
Oh, yeah. Well, good point, Jill. Yeah, this is not a Brady Bunch situation, although Cindy tried to make it like that. She tried desperately to do whatever she could. The sad part of all this is that her 2 stepdaughters truly don't forgive her for having taken some of the money that was from Levi's death and in their minds took it out of the mouths of her grandchildren. And in their minds, therefore, is a monster who all she cares about is money. And I have to stress that if not for Cindy coming to the realization, which was definitely very hard for her to do, because now by the time she comes to that realization, she does have a son with this man. She has bought into this man being the good father. And if you notice, Carl is actually such a good father with Alex. He's going to his private school. He's taking his kids on trips to Washington, D.C. He's coveted by the school in Rochester, which is bizarre. So it's not just Cindy he's fooling. It's everyone around him.
Right. You referenced the TV show that he was on, Pitching In.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Did you get to watch it?
I did. I did watch it.
I found it and I watched it too. And there you have him in all of his greatness, this wonderful guy. And he's charismatic and he's funny and he's so worried about the ducks and going to bathe. And I'm building something wonderful here that no one else has done. You want to see that side of Carl? There it is.
They're free range and he cares for them one at a time. And he's doing everything, like you say, in his power to be so good to these ducks and these ducklings. And of course, then he kills them. Yep. So he's being so good to the ducklings until he kills them and has them slaughtered. And of course, that's every farmer. So he's not looked at as being unusual at all. But at the same time, there's too much joy in the killing.
We see when he goes to the poultry farm, because he had this grandiose plan that he was going to expand the ducks, and he goes to the poultry farm and is just relishing in the blood and the stench and manure and death. And it's revolting to the rest of us. I mean, even people who are in these slaughterhouses, they have worked their way into having that kind of shell. But here comes this guy, and he's like, this is great. He's excited by this.
Yeah, and you notice the PI that went with him because he's posing as the marketer, right? Meanwhile, Cindy had hired this guy as she's thinking, oh my God, I'm married to a killer. And imagine what that thought is. Sleeping in bed with a killer and finding out that he has annuities on her with death benefits and finding out that she could be worth $1.2 million to him and that she could very well be next. So he goes to the USDA plant because this is another trait of a serial killer, right? The illusions of grandeur. The idea that he is going to be a king. He went on the Food Network. He's being sold this idea that, wow, I'm going to be famous and rich. And, this is my chance at the universe, to the golden rainbow. And while there with the PI at the USDA plant, like you say, he is so into the gore, so into the blood, which is all over the floors. And I mean, not just a little blood, a lot of blood. And he's watching them use electric stingers to kill each duck, and he's into it. The PI is horrified by it. I mean, the PI goes into the restroom to vomit, having seen all of this. That would be a normal reaction to someone, like you say, who's not familiar with this amount of slaughter. When Steve Brown, the PI, finally does get to talk to John Clear, the sheriff on this case, the homicide investigator, he puts out a note, and in it, he describes all this. And he says, Carl is very irrational, he's not to be trusted, and that he's not happy with Cindy, and the fact that he can't get a hold of the rest of this money from his son's death, which we figure out. And then you're thinking, okay, Cindy will be next. Cindy is sleeping with a killer. And that, to me, is to get inside that household. As much as we're talking about the details that come through, as you say, when you're reading the book, you can't believe the amount of strange details that start to evolve in their relationship as she starts to force herself to believe that not only did he kill his son, but he also killed their prized horses, really were his horses, and killed Christina. So all of this is coming at her, and she's panicked. She's absolutely panicked. By the time she gets to the PI and discovers that he has $1.2 million of annuities on her with death benefits. I mean, can you imagine?
I can't imagine being in a situation where I'm going to try to hide from him while a lot of this is unfolding. And then being willing to wear a wire for the police.
Right.
To catch him.
And here's the thing. When she finally came to that realization, it took her a few years to actually believe it. And when she did believe it, she was going to the PI, and the PI was kind of luring her and milking her, telling her, oh, yes, I'm going to California and, we'll find evidence. The truth of the matter is there was zero evidence because Levi was cremated and the scene was deemed an accident and there was no going back. Going back. So there's no proof whatsoever that can be tied to him in that murder of his son. Zero.
Right. Had she not pursued this, cooperated, he would still be out there.
Absolutely. And probably murdered.
Yeah, I was going to say, I wonder how many other people wouldn't be thinking of those with those death benefits.
So there were life insurance policies taken out on his granddaughters. $300,000 a piece on little children. One of the shocking things in this story, I did not know that you could just go ahead and take out life insurance policies on your grandchildren without any consent by the parents, by the grandchildren. And they were little girls. I mean, what a strange thing to do.
It was always someone else's idea. Christina wanted the policies on the kids. Levi wanted the policies on his daughters. He wasn't forcing anyone to do this. The guy at the insurance policy, the agent, he said we should have this. But yet Carl has all this insurance and is the one who benefits.
Well, he is the only beneficiary. The fact that he lured his son to that insurance agent and paid the first payment and hence solidified him getting the money. He had a time frame that he had to kill his son in because there was going to be a medical exam, and Levi had a medical issue that could have prevented this life insurance policy to be ultimately something he could collect on. As long as Levi was killed before they did the medical exam, it was all good. And the same pattern was in the case of Christina Carlson. Same pattern.
Right.
And, you wonder, how did that death of Levi Carlson not get looked at by the insurance company to say, hey, he took out insurance and a few weeks later, Levi's dead. And it's a lot of insurance that Levi couldn't afford. How did they not put that together? The law enforcement agency in New York. And then how did they not put that together in California? And there is obviously reference that the fire chief and the investigators in California did suspect him. There was no question about it. There was plenty of interviews there. Carl fled. So he was able to walk free for all those years. And had Cindy not started taping him, had Cindy not worn the wire, you would have had nothing, because they needed a confession from Carl that he killed his child, and they sat with him for 9+ hours to get that.
Yeah. And they got a lot from him. They really, really did. We talk about Christina's death, and then we talk about the barn fire. But there are all of these other fires that happened as well. You have Levi's house burns to the ground.
Yes, Levi. So Levi got married, and he marries a teenage sweetheart, and they have 2 girls, and she's still pregnant with the second girl, with Ivy, and suddenly their house, while they're staying at her mother's, burns down to the ground. Now, you got to wonder, what was Carl's part in that? What kind of strange relationship did he have with Levi? If Levi truly suspected that something went on, or that there was foul play with his mother in California, why on earth would he allow his father to convince him to burn the house down? And I think Levi did burn the house down, not Carl.
Huh.
And that's the strangeness of their relationship, because he was underwater with the house, but Carl has a solid alibi, so he was not there when the house burned down. So now what? Levi's following in his father's footsteps? It's craziness.
Isn't it ironic that Carl so badly is trying to keep up with his siblings, get and win his father's approval, and Levi is doing exactly the same thing? His father did not approve of that house.
Right. And so, yes, and he made comments that, the wiring was faulty, the house is really old, they shouldn't have moved into it. In other words, he did everything but say this house is going to go on fire, right? And right? And you have all those hints.
And it does.
And it does. Levi and his wife feel, we got out from under this mortgage, this loan from HUD that we couldn't afford, and we're done with it. Well, that wasn't really the case, but somebody deliberately burned this house down. And the reason we know it is because all the bedrooms and the clothing and the sheets were removed when the fire investigators went in there. So it's deliberate. It was deliberate. There's no accident there. And the question really becomes, was Carl holding this over his son's head?
There might have been some mutual holding things over each other's heads there.
Well, exactly.
And the same thing happens to Levi's car. The car that Carl thought, the Datsun 280, that he thought was ridiculous, and you've got kids, and lo and behold, that car burns up too.
Wow. Yeah. Well, it didn't completely fully burn, and that's, another game he plays, which is, there's a fire, but it's a smaller fire. Then there's a bigger fire that the house burned down to his son. And then there was a fire in his son's apartment building.
Yes.
When Levi moved from that area and got, divorced. And it's just, you got to question what in the hell was going on between Levi and his father that he couldn't see through, to use the horrible pun, the smoke screen.
He couldn't. That's very true. Oh my gosh. We talked about Carl being a serial killer. I have to ask you this. There is the McDonald triad. And for years, it was you set fires, that you injure animals, you abuse animals, and you wet the bed. And it kind of fell out of favor research-wise, but the most recent paper I just read on this is that, these things do tend to piggyback along with serial killers. Not 100%, but they do show up. So I said, all right, so we've got Carl burning down the horses and killing the horses. And we've got him eventually killing all of his ducks that he can't feed and wringing their necks, not using the stun gun, wringing their necks and murdering them. Did he wet the bed?
Here's what I can tell you. He was very cagey about talking about his childhood. And one of the things that he confided to Cindy was that somebody in his household sexually molested him. He was talking about a sibling.
Whoa.
He was hinting about that. When I asked him about it, and I did, he didn't want to touch that with a 100-foot pole. That was just off limits. So that tells me that there's some truth there, because had he denied it, then I would, be able to say, okay, this is something he made up, because there's so many things he makes up throughout the story, throughout his life, that you kind of get to a point where you're not, what's real, what's not real? Does he cry because Cindy's moving out? Is that real? Or the fake tears with the water he splashed in his face? I mean, but then was he really sorry because his life was falling apart when she left him? For real? I mean, all of that goes on. And one of the things that I talk about in the book is once Cindy left, he was driving by her rental house and he sat there for quite some time at moments, to the point that they had to close the blinds, and she put up a fake camera so that he would think that he was being recorded, and what he would then do is drive around the back of the house and hide there. So he was stalking her after she moved out. Obviously, that's intimidation, and that's what he wanted. And then again, he found out that she's with this other guy, that, she's found someone else. And that is a death sentence, perhaps. And the other guy, Dave, when that text came through saying, you better watch it. Okay. They just packed up and left. They literally packed up and left that day.
Yeah. For like 2 months.
Yeah.
They were on the road for like 2 months, right?
Yeah. Yeah. They lived on the run. And you wonder, how did she go through all of that? But then you think, this is why she had to figure out a way to trap him, because her son's in a high school there. Now she's had him on the run in the summer, but he's got to go back to school. She's not going to pull him out from where his friends are when he's, in that teen time where it's so essential that you're in the same high school. And she can't afford to have another house. She can't afford rent somewhere else. She was staying with her brother. She was staying at hotels where she had a special deal on the hotels through her cousin. She could not afford that. And she had to go back. So now she has to go back and live 3 miles from the killer, worried about her son, worried about her own life, worried about his intimidation, worried about the boyfriend. And I mean, think about that.
But this is the woman who stole the grandchildren's money?
Well, yes.
She's got discounts. She's paying rent. I hate to criticize anybody who's involved in this. I really do. But my heart goes out to everybody. But it goes out to Cindy, because I think she got a raw deal. Just my opinion.
She got a very raw deal, and that's part of the story that had never been told. Because up until now, when I wrote this book, No one got inside the head of Cindy, nor inside the head of Carl to understand the strange relationship they had. And also the fact that she was a waitress. She had no form of income. When they got divorced, he had liens on the house. He was in debt. There was no money for her to have. There was nothing. All right. She got half the house, but they were going to have to sell it and get pennies on the dollar. She knew this. So what future does she have? How is she going to support herself and her son? She is talked into, look, you need to get rid of that money. And there's another factor here, Jill, which is Carl wants that money. Carl needs that $200,000 that's left out of the $700,000. He's already run through it. And had she not taken that money and split it so that he can walk away with $100,000, she walks away with a little over $100,000, either both of them, he would go after her next. That's what the PI was telling her. He needed the money. He was running out. He was desperate. Yeah. What is she going to do? She needs to get rid of that money. And she needs to find a way to ensure that he can't get his hands on it because they're still married. And the PI talks her into put it in real estate, put it where you have a renter. Then you've got some income and you have a safe haven. And of course, we don't need to go into this. People will read it in the book, but there's a whole twist to the PI as well, which is kind of shocking.
Yeah, that's what I mean. She really got a raw deal. Here she's relying on people and trying. She is asking for advice. She's asking, what do I do here? I don't understand this paperwork. I don't understand what I'm looking at. What do you mean there's insurance? And she really did not have a grasp of all this. And she's taken advantage of. And you're right. He was desperate.
So when you find out from the private investigator that here's paperwork that shows that it's not annuities, it's annuities with death benefits, that he will, if you die, collect a lot of money. And you know now that he collected a lot of money from Levi. He's collected a lot of money from his horses being killed and Christina. And you're going to be next?
Well, he's already killed one wife.
Right.
And she's an obstacle.
Absolutely. Cindy was an obstacle. So she had to get rid of that money. She had to let him have half of what was left. If you recall in the story, the whole thing started because he convinced Cindy to have a facelift. She didn't plan to have a facelift. She went in because her eyelids were drooping and that was covered by insurance. And that's what she needed. And of course, surgeons will say, hey, while you're there, they want to make their money. It won't cost much more to have a facelift. And Carl convinces her, you should do it, Cindy. Why don't you do it? And once she agrees to that, because she's going to go under the knife anyway and go under anesthesia, and they'll pay the money back because they've got the duck business going, and she's looking at the monies. And at that time, it seemed like things were going to go well, and they would pay it back. And of course, that was the slippery slope that allowed her stepdaughters to say, she got a facelift, she got new cars, she went on trips. And the fact of the matter is, none of that happened. She showed me the paperwork about her car. She had leased it, and she was so thrilled that she got a new car, but she couldn't afford to go out and buy it in Toto. She had a lease. I saw the documents. And she still worked as a waitress. And she wound up working with the guy she is with still to this day, Dave Osher, selling backpacks, if you call them, in craft shows. And they still do this. And she can't afford to just live with what little she has. She doesn't have. And, it's interesting too that she saved money for her granddaughters. And she handed over $20,000 to Electra once Electra turned 18. And of course, Electra signed the check, but never sent so much as a text to her grandmother. And of course, that's because she was brainwashed by Cassie, who said, hey, your grandmother took your money out of your mouth. You would have had this and that in college and whatever. Cindy saved over $40,000 of her 100 and change for those girls. That's a lot of money when you look at what she had to deal with for all those years.
Yeah. Her life was on the line. It really was. This is not an exaggeration. These are not unfounded fears. And still managed to come out and get those girls a heck of a lot more than Carl ever did.
Oh, had she left the money there, he would have absolutely taken it and there would be nothing left for them. That was not the point of him being named the sole beneficiary of the money if Levi died. Levi believed it, which is another strange thing. Why did Levi believe that his father can be trusted with this money? And it's bizarre.
Is it just youth that he wanted to believe his parent was looking after him, that he had screwed up his life? So I have to think there was that wing and a prayer, that one hope that, maybe he's going to help me out here. That does sound like a good idea, making sure the girls are taken care of. Part of it was because working at Guardian Glass was dangerous. Was it dangerous?
That's questionable.
Yeah, I wondered.
You never had heard of anybody dying from working there, that's for sure.
I looked in the newspapers.com and I didn't come up with anything, but you talk to people.
Yeah, and here's the thing. He cozied up to his son. They had beers together. They had time together. They had lunches together. And he's giving his son advice about the divorce, about, what he should do with his children and how he should figure out how to get, visitation and how he could figure out the ways in which he would have his daughter's future planned. And that's the guise under which Levi signed over an insurance policy to his dad. And again, it's just so bizarre when you think about it, that this son, yes, it's youth, but remember, he knows about his car went on fire. He knows his house went on fire. He knows his house as a child went on fire. So where are we headed with this?
Yeah. I have to think he was manipulated, that he just got sucked into Carl's crazy. He was in the divorce with Cassie. She was keeping him away from the girls. All of that was going on to be fair to him. Giving it to her didn't seem like a good decision. So who else was left?
Well, and that's it. His stepmother he's not going to trust because she's not blood. His father has cozied up to him and made him believe that, hey, I've got your best interests at heart. Little does he know that he's got insurance policies on his granddaughters. Little does he know what his father's plans would be. And when you call it naivete, that's partially true. But you have to remember, Levi was in a very vulnerable state at the time that he was killed. I mean, he doesn't have his kids, he doesn't have his wife, he doesn't have his house anymore, and he's kind of lost everything except the job that his father got him. So in a way, he feels, okay, I'm back under my father's wing. This is good for me.
And remember, his best friend was also deceased at this point, too.
Right, exactly.
You're absolutely right. He's in a very, very vulnerable state. And who doesn't want to trust Dad?
Exactly.
I mean, you might have your suspicions about Dad, but, he's been so good to me this last 6 months. He's been great. He's been helpful. And charming Carl, there he was.
One of the things I did not put in the book is that at the slaughterhouse, at the USDA plant, which was quite a drive away, states away in Pennsylvania, it wasn't just the PI that went there. It was also his daughter, Katie, the youngest, who was a daddy's girl. And this is now after Levi was killed, right? This is after Levi's accident. So what spell was Katie under to go with his father to that plant? Did she not notice that he was thrilled about the killings? Did she not notice? How do you look away from this? How do you look away from all that happened with the horses, with her mother, with her brother? And you start to think, this is where the charismatic father comes into the picture. This is where he's got his daughters under his thumb. And Aaron finally runs away. But Katie stays. And Katie actually was starting to think about investing in her father's business, which is also bizarre. Why would she do this? She was a cop. She was a police officer by then.
When you are in it, seeing the forest through the trees, it is a very, very different animal dealing with your own family and the dysfunction and the relationships than when you are out investigating domestic violence or something. I mean, when you are in it, I think she was mentally protecting a lot.
Right.
Gets obviously ripped away at trial when the reality of what happened, when she hears about the causes of the fire. And I think she was too close to it to see things clearly.
Right. And the thing is, too, that when her father was in jail, okay, and was being held for the suspicion of murder, he was going to be a defendant for the murder of his son, Katie is still all in with her dad. She goes to the house, the empty house, the farmhouse, and starts cleaning it out because her dad's given her power of attorney and has trusted her to watch his back. Which again, how does Katie not see that her mother was killed in a fire, that her brother was killed in an accident, that the horses on the farm were killed in a fire? She finds out that her brother's house was burned to the ground. I mean, it's not like she wouldn't know this. So where is she in all this? What bizarre relationship did she have with her father that, again, not only did she want to believe, but she did believe that he was innocent?
Well, I think it's much easier to blame Cindy.
Right. And that's it. Cindy was the scapegoat.
Yeah. It's so much easier. It's all Cindy's fault. She did all of this and it's all her. And this isn't my family. I didn't lose anybody. I think I can be rather objective about it. I think you can too. When you are in it and you've loved these people and you have all of this history with them and have gone through all of this, good times, bad times, it is very, very hard to sort out. That's why we have counselors. It is very hard to sort all of this out on your own. And I think Katie was maintaining a barricade there, a filter.
And remember, when they were kids and Cindy became their stepmother, she was very little when the house burned down in California. She was a toddler, basically. I think she was 4 years old. They did things like go to fairs and stage fairs. They were taken to Disney World on the trip. I didn't put in the book, but she went on a cruise with her parents, Cindy and Carl. I mean, all these things that a normal family would do, that's what Katie experienced along with Aaron and Levi. So, you got to wonder, how does Carl pull all this off? How does he now play the great father, the wonderful father, who's looking out for his kids, who's doing the things that we would anticipate happen in a normal family?
Cindy also has a weakness, and it was weaponized by Carl, her alcoholism.
Right, exactly. And so, exactly, you say weaponized. He knew how to lure her into drinking more. He knew how then to utilize that drinking to turn Alex against her. So all these elements are happening, step by step. There's a plan in place. When you talk about serial killers, and I do know that the FBI has designated some time ago that a serial killer could just have killed 2 people sometime apart, and Carl fits that description exactly.
Yes.
When you have that kind of situation, and she's just absolutely unaware of the first murder, she's feeling sorry for Carl. He's able to play that card and continue to play the card. It's almost shocking that Cindy didn't see it, Levi didn't see it, Katie, Aaron didn't really see it. Because one of the other things that I did not put in the book is that they all flew to Hawaii when Aaron gave birth to her first child. There's another trip the family takes. There's another element of when their kids were little still. And Carl said to me, Cindy was cheap. She was a penny pincher. She wanted a cheaper car, but I talked her into renting a Mustang because, you only live once. He was the spender. He was the one who took every penny he could and threw it away. And, we don't see that in the actual story because I did not want to put Aaron in that position. I felt that it wasn't right for the story's sake for her to accept her father after she'd basically run away and joined the Air Force. She found a way to accept him at some point in her life. But then you come to find out that it was Alan Tietz, what she considered her natural father, biological father, and he was considered that to her, even though it was Carl. She had moved on and felt that, Alan Tietz was her dad. He's the one who walked her down the aisle. It said she eloped, but there was a wedding. I didn't include it again because I was trying to shelter Erin somewhat and trying at the same time for the reader to come to a conclusion about where Erin stood with her father.
Yeah, no, I agree. I can see that, and I think you did it brilliantly. You do have to wonder about all of them. I mean, Alex finally gets it, but he hears it straight from the police.
He can't accept it. He can't accept it. I mean, how do you accept this? There are pictures in the book, one of them where Carl's dressed very much like a preppy and he's fixing Alex's tie, whatever, clothing, and they're ready to go off to some event. I mean, how do you go from that to my father killed my brother?
Yeah.
It's unfathomable, really. I mean, you look at, for example, the Gilgo Beach serial killer in New York.
I was just thinking that.
Right? You knew that, and I went there and I talked to neighbors. He was weird. He didn't associate with any of the neighbors. He was barely seen. There was something wrong with the way the house looked. There was something wrong with the way his wife was hidden in the house. Everything about it was twisted from the outside looking in. So even though he was able to maintain a mask when it came to his job as an architect, the fact of the matter is he was doing all kinds of geeky stuff and weird stuff and burning God knows what in the driveway. People saw this. You did not see this with Carl.
No. He was better
at it. Well, not only that, he used Cindy as a cover. And this is why he went along with her getting in vitro fertilization, because at some point Cindy said to me, I now realize, just like the facelift, he wanted to have this additional child because then it solidifies him being a good father.
Yes, I hadn't thought about that, but yes, I think you're right. Because remember, he didn't want to have to parent all these kids anyway. Why would he want another one? Well, because of this image that he's projecting, of course.
Yeah, exactly. Again, Cindy is his pawn. She is his pawn. She's his cover. She makes the beautiful house. She has the curtains up, just like Christina did. And I was in the house. The house was really lovely. All right. It wasn't some junky house on the farm. No. It was a lovely home that she made. And so people would come there and visit her kids and, family members would come in and everything looked great. It wasn't like Huerman where, the Gilgo Beach where there's really something weird. You're not going in that house. Or even you think about the BTK, another case I covered, right? Even though he was able to mask it from his own wife and children, there's still something odd about the way he lived his life and the various things that were happening in his life. You don't see that with Carl. You don't know that he killed all those ducks. You don't know for sure that he killed the horses. You don't know that Levi's accident wasn't an accident until much later when Cindy put the pieces together.
Well, when you start connecting the dots, his MO is exposed. Buy insurance. 3 weeks later, there's an accident, a death, a fire, what have you. And once you see the pattern, what is seen cannot be unseen.
Right, exactly.
And then life really, really changes.
Exactly. And it's interesting too, Jill, that I could get into his head the way that I did. That access to a killer, for me, in 30 years of working in true crime, was unprecedented. And I don't know that I'll ever have access to a killer like that again, because I've faced many killers in prison. I've done the interviews. I've confronted killers, appeased killers to get them to talk. But I never had somebody who I'm talking to for almost 2 years, 5 days a week. That never happened. And I don't think it would ever happen again. So this is why there's all these bizarre comments from Carl that are not to be believed. Right?
Yes.
Because I had so much access to him that he would admit that to me, that he killed those ducks one by one by breaking the necks. And, you know, it's interesting. The following day after he admitted that, he wanted to backtrack on that. Uh-oh, I said too much. This doesn't make me look good. Let me try to backtrack on that. And he tried to tell me, in a way, shape, or form, he did it to be humane. That's what he said.
Hey, they're poor babies. They're starving.
Exactly. And you know, what is he going to do? He has to kill them because he doesn't want them to starve to death. But the thing is, whatever happened to gassing the whole barn? Why would you take one duckling at a time and break its neck and then fill up a wheelbarrow with the ducklings and bring them to a burn pit? I mean, to me, this is like El Chapo. I was at the El Chapo trial, and let me tell you, when you got to the point where you found out that he was throwing people into a pit to burn, dead or alive, I mean, this is the kind of monster that you can't fathom.
Burning is Carl's preferred method.
Right, exactly.
That's the way he does it. I think Levi is the outlier there. Everything else is burned. He liked to burn. He's not a pyromaniac. No.
But remember, he believes that everything's going to be burned to the ground. There'll be nothing there to associate him with the actual deed. And that's something that he got away with over and over again. But insurance companies were questioning. He was investigated, as he was investigated by the fire investigators and law enforcement in California. But again, there was no way to actually put him at the fire. They needed more, and they couldn't get it because he escaped to New York.
Thank God for Carl Kent.
Right? If not for Carl Kent deciding, you know what? I'm going to take these records when I retire. There could be a day. This man knew that this guy was a killer. And he wasn't about to let the records that he had held on to, the audio tapes, the videotape, all of the various police reports and fire reports that had been done, he took them with him and locked them in a locker in his basement. So the chain of custody wasn't destroyed. And I remember, too, when Carl Kent was on the stand, you know, he was asked, why did you save these boxes that you felt were evidence? And he said, because I thought the day would come. And, you know, objection. And he never could finish the sentence.
We can finish the sentence.
Exactly. The justice for Christina was something that family was holding on to. But then you have the other element in all of this, which is that family of Christina allowed Cindy Carlson to marry a killer. If they knew he was a killer, how do they allow this woman to marry him and have a son with him? How does that happen?
Would she have believed him? I believe that Colette kind of warned her. At least she claims she warned her and said, hey, you know, he killed my sister.
No. She never said that. No. She never said that. She lied to the press and said that was something she alluded to, something that she was trying to tell Cindy. She never came out and said that because what she wanted was somebody who was going to raise those children. So she figured, hey, you know what? Should there be another murder? It's not my problem. And I don't think she ever thought there would be another murder either. You know, I don't think she's an evil person. I just think she was being selfish in the moment. I certainly wouldn't encourage somebody to marry someone who I thought was a killer. I don't care what she felt was necessary for her nephew and nieces. And clearly somebody has blown their hands for Levi's death. Who is it?
Well, it's crap. There really is. I know that Carl's siblings, some of them have talked to the press, and you know they knew something was not right. I mean, they knew, but knowing, being prove it, and then being willing to stand up and do the right thing, very hard.
Unfortunately, that's right. Unfortunately, and you know the other thing is too, he comes back with his children. So there's that question, at least in his brother's minds in New York. Hey, you did save your children. You are here again. You do want to provide for your children. You do get married to another woman. You do find somebody who can do what needs to be done as a mother figure for these young children, 3 young children. So even though they're questioning why Carl got this, big insurance payout back in time, there's no proof of anything. And you don't want to believe that your brother's a killer.
Well, they did investigate and they paid out the money.
Exactly.
They didn't arrest him. They paid out the money. And you are weighing a lot. You are questioning. You're wondering what happened here. But you've got 3 kids that need mothering. They have 1 father. They have a stepmother who comes in to play the role and does so beautifully from what I can tell. How hard are you going to rock that? What good does it do at this point? I don't like it, but I can see the mindset, the process there. Nothing's going to bring Christina back.
Exactly.
And then he did a good job of acting the grieving father, pitching himself around, rolling around in the dirt and crying, supposedly. And there's just enough doubt mixed in there that it's just, he's a monster. He's a monster.
No question about it. And he actually continues to write to me now.
Oh no.
Oh yeah. Oh, I get regular mail from him, and in it, he's hanging on to the fact that he didn't take out a $1.2 million insurance policy on Cindy, because it was annuities with death benefits. It wasn't per se an insurance policy. And he's on and on about it. And also, he's clinging to the Jennifer Kiefer statement now that, Levi had a girlfriend at the end, and Levi did get a text from his girlfriend, and they exchanged, "I love you, want to be with you forever," just before the accident, before he was dead. And now Carl is saying they didn't leave the house at noon. Of course, Cindy's the witness that that's exactly when they left. And there's a time frame there as to when they arrived at the funeral towns away. It's very close in the time frame. It's not like, they got there early. No, they didn't. They got there late. Why? Because they didn't leave till noon. So he is now saying that not only did he first finds out that the text came in at 11:30, he wants me to send him a deposition because the DA in New York refuses to do that. I sent him the deposition because at that point, this was a couple years ago, I'm trying to just appease him. I want more of his talking to me. I don't want to cut that off. And here's the funny part about this, Jill. He admitted to killing his son. He took a plea deal. This means you accept the fact that you can't appeal it. But he is sitting there behind bars now in New York serving time for Levi's death and will eventually go back to California to serve the rest of his life for Christina's murder. And yet he's hell-bent that he will be able to undo this plea deal and that he will find justice for himself because he did not kill his son. So first he tells me in our conversations when he finds out about this text, which he knew nothing of, that, we left the house at 11:30 and my brother saw me because he goes to lunch every day at 11:30 and he sees me whenever he passes the farmhouse and he saw our car. On the phone, he's telling me this stuff and I'm listening and I'm thinking to myself, oh boy, we have a time frame locked in, but now you're going to change it so that it fits in with the text that Levi was alive because he got texts back and forth with his new girlfriend, Jennifer. Well, now another year has gone by. He wants the affidavit of Jennifer Kiefer. He wants the signed deposition affidavit and he's going to present it to the DA in New York. And now he's got the time frame. We left it at 11:20. And he literally presents to me recently a signed document by one of his brothers, the one he says drives by the farm, that his brother saw him. Now, how he coaxed his brother into signing this document, or he just wrote it up and signed it himself, who knows? Okay? But he moved it to now 11:20 because that fits his timeline. Because he doesn't want to be there when Levi got the text. He wants to be gone long before Levi got the text. So he's pushing to 11:20 now. And the irony of all this is, here shows you how psychotic this man is. He already admitted that he killed his son in a court of law. What he says is, I took the opportunity to leave my son there to die. So he doesn't say per se, I killed my son, but he's got a murder conviction because he admits to causing the death of his son.
Yes.
So how is he going to wiggle his way out of that now? I just find it almost amusing, but at the same time so psychotic that, and he continues to write to me trying to get me to believe this, as though I don't have the other depositions and affidavits based on Cindy's testimony, based on her sister's testimony, based on everyone else's testimony that proves the timeline.
Yeah. What time they actually, walked into the funeral, that night.
Exactly. Cindy knowing that they left at noon because she was angry that he was running late. She was upset about it. And this is where you get into the mind of a killer and the strange thinking that this man has all these years later. I mean, it's almost 10 years later, and he's still now fighting for, I don't know, some kind of truth that he wants to be told. Now, whether this is because he thinks that if that gets overturned, he can then get his conviction in California overturned, which he is appealing. I don't know. The word is mind-boggling to me.
We can't understand these minds because they are abnormal. We can't get it. I read, I study, and I read the research, and I go over it, and I have the faintest glimpse of understanding, and then it eludes me again because my brain does not work that way.
Well, not only that, but again, he is so good at twisting everything around that at some point you start almost believing him. You really do. And that comes across in my conversations with him. Of course, I don't believe him, but there's a part of me that I can understand how he got over on all these people.
Absolutely. That is what I pulled away from watching Pitching In, because he's so charming and so lovely to be about, and the smiles and the humor and the welcoming, and I almost felt slimy towards I'm watching it because I know, but I can see him working it.
And here's another thing. He takes Katie and Cindy. They go on a cruise, and it's not his money. He's using Cindy's tip money for the most part, which she saves up $5 at a time. He put in some money toward it, but regardless, on that cruise, there is a tape, and I have it and I've watched it, where he wins the hairy chest contest. Now, just think about this for a moment. He is strutting around on the Carnival Cruise Line, going to the Bahamas, traveling around, okay, getting Cindy to drink more because now he wants to set that up so she can be a black sheep to his family and he can be the hero. And he is there participating in contests and having his friends with him. And I mean, think about this for a minute.
He wants to be the center of attention. Everyone look at me. And obviously my hairy chest. Wow. Oof. He's an interesting subject, man.
Another thing that he said to me when I first saw him in person in court, and I remember I'd already been talking to him for a year, and there was a picture in the newspaper. They catch him turning around to look through the courtroom. And I know he was looking for me because he had already seen a picture of me. He'd gone somehow on the internet from the jail he was in. He knew what I looked like. And he told me, "You look like Demi Moore." And I thought, oh, God. So in any event, I get there and he turns around and now he's calling me in the middle of his trial. He's calling me. Okay. Which again, unheard of, crazy. And when he first calls after that first day, he says to me, "What did you think I looked like?" I didn't know what to say. I stumbled, and he said, "Please say I look like Mel Gibson."
Oh. Yeah, he wanted to lure you in so he'd have somebody on the outside on his side who could work your true crime magic, and poof, he's out of jail.
Another thing he said, and I always wear jackets, especially in court, and you see me on my show, I like to dress formally because I've spent so much time in courtrooms. And so I have on a black jacket. You can't really see the rest of me. You can see my jeans, and I did wear jeans there because there was more of a casual sense in that courthouse. And, it was much more local, the courthouse. At times I wore skirts, but then at times I wore jeans. And one day, as he's calling me, during the trial, he says to me, "What are you, a 38D?"
Oh my, oh,
Yeah, is right. I just wanted to shake that off. Talk about feeling unclean, like needing a shower immediately after, because he's actually getting my bra size. I can't imagine how he's sizing that up.
He's sitting here in a courtroom, right? And that's what's going through his mind. That's what he's thinking about?
Yeah.
Not the testimony, not my God, my wife, my son are both dead. Oh my God. No.
No.
He's worried about the audience and bra sizes. Huh.
It's beyond belief. I mean, I think people tell me that they had to go back and look at the pictures over and over again to believe that this was real, because there's so much in there that you just cannot believe that's coming out of his mouth, right? Like, it's just sheer insanity.
Well, listen, when I tell my listeners that they really need to read the book, I'm touching on the story, but there's no way I can tell them obviously everything that's in the book. That has never been more true in this book, because there is so much. We've touched on a lot, and we haven't even scratched the surface.
Well, that's it. When I wrote this book, I knew what I had from him. I knew what I had from Cindy too. You're inside that household of lunacy that first seems normal. And once it gets to be this point of crazy, no one has seen that before. You can't see it unless you have that access to the killer. I'll self-publish. It's okay. And boy, the response has been incredible on the internet.
Yeah, there's no question. I'd seen a few of the documentaries. I thought I knew the story. I had no idea.
Right. That's it. Again, this was a story I had to write. This was a story I had to suffer through talking to this monster, suffer through all his crap, suffer through the fact that he still thinks he's in the nuclear war program and is trying to convince me that he keeps tabs on it. He's part of it. I mean, it just goes on and on, stuff I didn't include because it starts to go down alleys and rabbit holes. And I mean, at some point I had to just say, look, I can't put it all in there. I mean, there's a day when I'd like to do a podcast and utilize those interviews. We'll see.
You should, because this is such a unique opportunity that you had here to access this to.
I've still got this monster writing to me and sending me these very long letters and twisting everything around and trying to ensnare me. And I haven't written back in a while now. So he continues to write and send me stuff.
Yeah, well, being ignored is not going to be something that he's going to go for. He's supposed to be the center of your world. Are you okay? After all this? Are you okay?
Here's what I did. I cut him off the minute I started writing. It was over. Now he was shifted to New York. So goodbye. And I never spoke to him again. So once I started writing, he became just a figure in the story. And I had to separate myself from that, And I never heard from him, honestly, for the whole time I was writing, nor did I hear from him even when the book came out. I don't know if he's read it. I would imagine he'd been told the book is out because he would be looking for it, right?
Yeah.
And yet he started to write to me after the book was out. And even when he writes to me, I don't look at it right away. I don't open the stuff. I might take weeks before I'll open it because I've got to, prepare myself. It stays in its own corner. It's in a dark corner in the attic of my mind.
Yeah.
I don't let it come out.
Yeah. Put the barricades up.
Whenever I did the interviews with him, I would go into a dark room. I'd close all the blinds and I would sit in darkness because I knew I was with the devil.
Yeah. I do understand. Yeah.
With all this stuff about, I need proof. You're the only person who can help me. And the first letter was very curt and he was threatening me with, you're going to be deposed. We're going to call you in. I'm going to subpoena you. And I have a lawyer, again, craziness. And I didn't respond to it. finally I decided, you know what, let me answer this nut, because there could be a time where I'm going to go into that prison and do an interview. So let's just appease him for a minute and send him the statement from Jennifer Kiefer and see what he does with that. And sure enough, Cindy, who I'm still in touch with, said to me, oh, you shouldn't have done that. Because, there are letters that I didn't put in where he says to Cindy, I don't blame you. I don't blame you. I still love you. Oh. It's just unfathomable. I don't know what else to say. I mean, she's the one who trapped him. She's the one who wore the wire. He knows that.
He's trying to get his ducks in line. He doesn't want to let you go. It's like you're his. He needs you back in the corral. And Cindy too. I mean, even if she heard him here and got him arrested, she's still been his. So
she's put all of that behind her, which is amazing. Amazing that she's able to do that. But she had to do it for her own preservation. And, that shows, again, I think, the justice in this world. She found a man who loves her to death. They've been together for 12 years. He's there. They're together. Her son has gotten married, has a child. Carl did write to me and say, I heard I have a grandchild. And I thought, how do I answer this? Because Alex and Cindy have moved on and created lives for themselves. And that's amazing to me because victims often can't do that.
Yes, it's very hard.
Very, very hard. And not to mention that his stepsisters, who he was raised as sisters, basically have turned against him and his mother. There's some contact with him, limited contact that has come recently, but in essence, they don't care about him. There's such a hatred for Cindy that he's an appendage, and that's sad to me. But they've moved on. There are happy times. There's a baby in the mix, and partners and marriages, and, the proof is in the pudding, isn't it?
Yes, well, there you are. Good for Cindy. Glad she's moved on. Glad that Dave stuck around. Bless his heart. Because that's an awful way to start a relationship, but he hung in there, bless him. Hey, listen, I wish everybody well in the story. Everybody's been victimized at some level here by him. And there was justice for Levi and Christina, which is really at the heart of this whole thing.
Absolutely.
So, what's next?
Well, I have my plate full. I am actually reissuing a number of my books, which means I'm changing some titles. I'm doing new introductions. I'm bringing them out with new covers. I'm going to Crimecon this year. I'm doing a presentation on Michael Peterson, the wonderful killer who I also had access to, where I wrote a book about called The Perfect Husband, which has been ignored by The Staircase on Netflix, which has been ignored by The Staircase on HBO Max. All of the facts of that case, all of the evidence has been cut out of a 13-hour documentary and a huge dramatic production with Colin Firth playing Michael Peterson. And so I'm going to be presenting not only the evidence, and I have a very strong PowerPoint presentation with evidence from the trial, but I also have the witness to the person who was killed in Germany in 1985, who will be joining me on the stage. And that is something. Yeah.
I'm going to be at Crimecon, so I can assure you I will be as close to down front as I can get to hear this one. That's for sure.
Oh, yeah. And when you see it, it's really horrifying parts of it I had to put in, but also it is so obvious what happened here happened twice. All right. And I have answers to the owl theory as well.
Oh,
and
good.
So,
Whoa.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to go there. And I'm going to go there in a way that's going to upend whatever people have heard from that defense attorney who is unabashed. Who the gall of this man to go around the country. I watched him do the presentation in New York. I actually went to it. And he literally goes into the whole owl thing. It's just incredible to me that a documentary, 1,300 hours of film that De Lestrade did in so many years' time can get away with making the viewer think that they've seen it all. They heard about the bisexuality. They heard about the person who fell down the stairs in Germany. They hear about all these things. And yet the key evidence is left out. The key evidence is not there.
Well, I can't wait to see your presentation.
Yeah, thank you.
Phenomenal.
Well, it's going to be something. I will tell you that. It's going to be an eye-opener, no question. And one of the things I should say about that too, Jill, is that the lead detective in this story, the homicide detective, Art Holland, who I've always maintained a relationship with, we did a piece together for the BBC on our podcast when the HBO Max docudrama came out. That was a few years ago, and he came to a decision that he could not bring himself to go to Crimecon. And I thought long and hard about it, and I was very disappointed. But I came to realize he's got to live with this every day in his life, in living in Durham.
Yeah.
He's had to live with this documentary that's a lie, with this now drama that's a lie every day. He just can't do it anymore.
Yeah, I can understand that. I can.
And I wrote to him, I said, Art, I get it. And so I will be his voice. I will be the voice of the prosecution because I have to be.
Yes. Yes, you will.
And so will that witness who, again, needs justice for a murder that happened so many years ago and has been completely covered up.
Yes. Aphrodite Jones, I want to thank you so much for sitting down. This has been a fantastic conversation about this.
Thank you, Jill. I appreciate it. I really do. And I appreciate your loyalty and your being a fan. And I can now say I'm a fan of yours.
Oh, you made me cry.
Well, you're incredible. Your research is incredible. I'm really impressed. Really impressed.
Oh, thank you. If you get the time to actually listen to the podcast, I go into firefighter research on the likelihood of Christina dying at 2 p.m. in the afternoon in January. I mean, in a house fire, started in the hallway, and the probability of that. I'm a researcher. Yeah.
I would love to hear your podcast, and I will listen to it. And when you're ready, send me the link, and I'm going to promote it, and it will be there for people to hear, for people to dive into. And absolutely, I'm looking forward to it.
I will see you at Crimecon.
Absolutely, looking forward to it.
Written and produced by Jill, all rights reserved.